Hey everybody, Mrs. Bianchi. We're looking at number 10. Mark enjoys running. The graph shows how far Mark ran over time. Use equivalent ratios to find how far Mark ran in 7 minutes. So do you see how here they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we could kind of visualize like a 6 and a 7 over here. And you may be able to tell that the dot would be like over here somewhere. So we can see that we're likely to be definitely over 300, and all the choices are over 300. But if there was a choice that was not over 300, we would, of course, eliminate that just by using the visual. But how might we use either a data table or ratios and proportions to figure this out? So the two categories that we have here, if we're going to use ratios, so I'm just going to clone this for a second. So we're talking about time, and we're talking about, I'll clone this as well, and we're talking about distance. Oops, put the wrong thing. Distance in meters is our units. So if we're going to use proportions, then we would do a fraction bar, an equal sign, and a fraction bar. And then we would say to ourselves, well, what's the time that if we just take one of the ratios here? So let's just take this dot and look at the coordinates for it. So it's one minute, right, for every 60 meters that we're going. That's the distance. So they want to know for 7 minutes. And you have to decide if you're going to use proportional reasoning as your method to answering this question, where would I put the 7? Would it go on the top because it's talking about minutes, or does it go on the bottom because it's talking about meters? Well, it's talking about minutes, so we would put it on the top. And we're solving for the distance in meters. So I'm going to use a D instead of an M so we don't get that confused with minutes. Distance. All right, so as it turns out, 1 times 7 does equal this. So we could take advantage of just doing the 60 times 7 to figure that out. Now, if this strategy, if you didn't recognize that you could use this strategy, another way you could have done this is you could have just made a data table and looked for the patterns to kind of figure it out. So let's just explore that option. So if we put in these numbers, 1, 2, 3, and that's going to be all the time, right? 1, 2, 3. Now for 1, it was 60, so we would put that over here. For 2, it was 120, so we would put that here. For 3, it was 180. For 4, it was 240. So 4 for the x, 240 for the y coordinate, and so on, right? So for 5, it was the 300. Now, if we were going to use this strategy, we might just keep going with the 6 and the 7. And we could either, whoops, I didn't draw that very neatly. As a matter of fact, let's erase that. And let's extend the line instead. It'll be a little neater. Now we need to keep going until we get to 7 minutes, right? Because these are minutes, 1, 2, 3. So we have to keep going until we get to 7. And if we keep going on the other side, these are all multiples of 60. So we could kind of keep our multiples by adding 60 each time. That would work. Or if we were going to try to write some sort of a function, what do you have to do this number to get this number? What do you have to do this number to get this number? So whatever the time is, you would have to multiply it by 60. So 60 times the time would equal your distance. So we could apply the number 7 and substitute it in for the letter T and simply multiply it and get the answer that way. So that's an option. You have lots of options for doing these types of problems, which make it a little bit easier in my opinion. But at any rate, you should be able to finish this up using mental math even to figure out the right answer. And remember, your cross product should always match. So whatever you pick, you would want to do 1 times that value, whatever you're picking, and make sure that it matches whatever 60 times 7 is.